Hello everyone and welcome to another comic book breakdown. Today we're going to be looking at The Amazing Spider-Man number 129. This has a 20-cent cover price and came out in February of 1974. Writer of this book is Gerry Conway, art by Andru, cover by Gil Kane, John Romita, and Jasper Saldino, inker Frank Giacoia and Dave Hunt, colorist also Dave Hunt, letters by John Costanza, and editor Roy Thomas. A little side note, you can see right there, this is actually autographed by Gerry Conway, the co-creator of The Punisher. This is Punisher's very first appearance in the comic book, and also the first appearance of another character called the Jackal. We'll go ahead and slide this over here, that way that holds the book steady for us. We'll go ahead and look at the very first page. You can see this storyline is called Punisher Strikes Twice. In the very first page, you can see none other than the Punisher and the Jackal right there, so that would be considered their first appearance. Their main goal in this book is to terminate or kill Spider-Man. They're practicing on a clay statue of Spider-Man, and so far the Punisher is pretty much a crack shot. Let's go ahead and get to know these two characters a little bit better. In pages 2 and 3, they're having the conversation on why they want to kill Spider-Man. Punisher is still one of those guys that is looking for revenge for people who are criminals. Even though he's portrayed as a villain in this book, he does have a set of morals, and he will only kill people if he feels they deserve to be killed. Jackal, on the other hand, is a little bit more ruthless and doesn't really care about the outcome. The bottom two panels, we can see Peter, or Spider-Man, swinging around. He's a little frustrated with the city. Apparently there is a stench in the air that just will not dissipate. But he is swinging around. He finally does see some criminals doing some criminal activity. He intervenes and, of course, makes very short work of them. We'll go ahead and turn the page to page 4 and 5. As you can see, there's no problem at all for Peter dispensing of these criminals, and actually leaves them wrapped up in a very nice package for the police, and he swings along his way. Let's go ahead and continue to the next page. On pages 10 and 11, we can see Peter arrive back at the Daily Bugle to meet up with pretty much the regular staff that has been there from day one, which includes J. Jonah Jameson, Betty Bryant, and Joe Roberts. Peter then asks Betty if J. Jonah is one of his regular moods, and Betty confirms of course he is, but does say that he'd like to see him in his office. Peter then enters the office of J. Jonah Jameson with his pictures he took of the robbery that he foiled as Spider-Man, but J. Jonah Jameson didn't want to have anything to do with it. He wanted to focus on the new villain in town. Punisher starts war against the mob. That is the talk of the town, and apparently the Daily Bugle is behind the 8-ball in this story, so he puts Peter right on it to go see what he can find out. Peter doesn't waste any time, and he's out the door on his Spider-Man ways to go see what he can find out about this new character, the Punisher. We'll go ahead and turn the page. Right off the bat, Peter doesn't have to wait long because the Punisher's goal is to hunt down the Spider-Man and kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man senses something wrong, but he doesn't exactly know where it's coming from and is very confused, and before he knows it, a big explosion goes off, and it definitely rattles Spider-Man, but he does see a character on the roof. He realizes that he doesn't have to find the Punisher has already found him. This is the first time that the Punisher and Spider-Man meet in person. Spider-Man thinks the Punisher is trying to get away, but of course the Punisher never tries to get away. The Punisher is actually looking for another weapon to help subdue Spider-Man. The Punisher deploys this weapon. It's a titanium alloy wire, wraps up Spider-Man, and Punisher feels as though it'll do the job. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. The Punisher describes to Spider-Man why he is there to kill him. The Punisher believes that he has killed Norman Osborn, and an eye for an eye is kind of what Punisher's motto is. Unfortunately, the wire that's wrapped around Spider-Man does not hold long, and Spider-Man is able to break free and knock out the Punisher. Jackal is very close, hiding in the background, and when he sees his moment, takes a swipe at Spider-Man with his claws and totally disorients Spider-Man. Punisher doesn't like the fact that he attacked him from behind because that goes against his morals. Apparently, Punisher had morals at this time. Spider-Man then falls off the building, and the Punisher believes that he is dead, and he doesn't think that's an honorable way for anyone to die. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. Spider-Man swings his way into an office building, and then he recovers after he startles a few ladies. He then goes back to the scene of the crime and realizes there is a weapon still sitting there. He looks on the weapon and it says Reese Armories. He thinks that's a clue, and he's going to use that to find out exactly where it came from. The next two panels are a little bit of a tangent of the story. We're taking a little bit of a break. Spider-Man is actually talking to himself. He does that quite a bit, I've noticed. But he's talking about a Spider-Mobile, and one thing I didn't realize, Johnny Storm and Spider-Man are working together to make the Spider-Mobile, which will make an appearance in the very next issue. He's also talking to himself about his roommate, Harry, which hasn't paid rent for the last 3 months. Of course, his father has passed away. He thinks that Harry believes he's the reason for his father's death, so there's a little bit of tension going on between the both of them. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. As you can see, there's a couple holes in the book. Looks like the previous owner cut something out. We'll go on to the very next page. Here we see Peter sewing up his costume because of the damage it suffered, and then right outside the door, as he can hear Peter Parker yet talking to himself again, Harry Osborn is out there waiting. Harry Osborn is wondering whether Peter realizes that he took the costume of the Green Goblin and has now become the Green Goblin after his father's death. Harry is frightened and confused, and we'll have to address that in another issue down the road. The bottom two panels, we see an introduction of Mary Jane Watson. She makes a very small appearance in this book. Right now, Mary Jane doesn't want to have a lot to do with Peter because of the recent death of Gwen Stacy. She doesn't believe he's a lot of fun right now, and she's all about having fun. It actually states that right up here in these panels. We switch now to the hideout for the Punisher and the Jackal, and they are totally in disagreement about what just happened with the Spider-Man. Punisher is very upset about Jackal attacking him from behind and pushing him to his supposed death, and they are not on the same page by far. They argue quite a bit, and they come to the conclusion that maybe this isn't a partnership that's going to work out. The Punisher then says he wants to go see the mechanic, that's the person in charge of his armory, so he can replace some of the weapons that have been used. But apparently you can see by the Jackal's face he's already got a plan, and something might already happen to the mechanic. Fast forward, we have Spider-Man putting the pieces together, already arriving at the armory as Punisher arrives at the same time. As Peter enters the armory, he can see that the mechanic is actually dead. Unfortunately, another hole is cut out of this book. That's where the Marvel value stamp is, so we kind of miss a little bit, and it does decrease the value of the book, unfortunately. The Punisher breaks in, sees the dead mechanic on the floor, and immediately thinks that Spider-Man was the person who caused his death. Go ahead and switch to the last few pages. Spider-Man tries to tell Frank Castle, or the Punisher, that he had nothing to do with it. The Punisher is not having that conversation. So Spider-Man finally realizes that he has to put the Punisher down. So he goes into his Spidey ways and takes care of the Punisher very easily. The Punisher comes to a little bit later and decides to have a reasonable conversation with Peter Parker. They then realize that the Jackal is the one behind this. There are claw marks on the back of the mechanic that resemble the same claw marks that Peter Parker suffered from the same hands of the Jackal. The Punisher is not amused and he feels betrayed by the Jackal, so now the Punisher's attention is going to go towards the Jackal, and I'm pretty sure the outcome for him will not be very well. Let's go ahead and go to the very last page. As you can see, Frank Castle is pretty upset about what he just found out. He realizes that Peter Parker is not the murderer that he is portrayed to be, and decides to leave him alone. Unfortunately, the sirens are coming, and Peter Parker knows that he has to flee the scene, or else he'll be blamed for yet another death. As he moves along his way, you can see the Jackal just sitting and hiding and realizing what he has done. But like I said before, Jackal, I kind of feel sorry for you because nobody wants the Punisher on their tail. So there you go, everyone. This is the breakdown in Amazing Spider-Man number 129, the very first appearance of the Punisher character. This was a great book. This is actually one of the prized possessions in my collection, and it was nice to get a chance to revisit this and share the story with everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying this new series. I'm having a lot of fun going back and reading some of these old books. I have a few other books I'd like to do because we are going to make this a weekly series. So let me show you some of the books that we have online, and we want to hear from you in the comments down below which ones you'd like us to cover. We have X-Men number 49. This is the first appearance of Polaris. We have Captain America number 117, the very first appearance of Falcon, or Incredible Hulk number 181, the first appearance of Wolverine. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these books you'd like me to break down and show in this video format. Thank you everyone for your time, appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You know what to do. We'll see you next time. Bye.